The Curse of El Coco. Duérmete, niño, duérmete ya, que viene el coco y te comerá. It was October 31st, 1893. In a small town in Cuba, there was a giant palm tree that grew huge coconuts. But the town legend said that the coconut tree had been cursed by a witch who had died after a coconut fell on her head. Nobody ate the coconuts from the tree or used its leaves or bark. It was said that if you even touched the tree, you would be cursed, and that the witch would steal your soul. In fact, it was against the town laws to do anything to the tree. One day, two young brothers, Francisco and Carlos, were herding their family's goats near the coconut tree. Their mother had warned them to stay away from the tree many times. Francisco boasted, "The curse isn't real. I've eaten coconuts from this tree and nothing has ever happened to me. I'm going to climb this tree and get a coconut for us to eat." Carlos gasped, "You can't climb that tree. It's too tall. And besides, Mommy told us not to go near it." Francisco laughed. "Ha ha ha ha! I'll show you." Then he walked up to the tree and started to climb. As he shimmied up the tree, his mouth was watering thinking of all that fresh coconut meat that was waiting at the top. As he got about halfway up, his hands started to get sweaty, and the bark was getting slippery under his hands and feet. The sky got dark as huge black clouds gathered overhead, and drops of rain from an afternoon storm started to fall. "Francisco, come back down!" Carlos yelled from the ground. Francisco's arms and legs were burning from pulling his weight up the tree, but he was determined to reach the top. Finally, he got close enough that a coconut was in reach. Francisco gripped the palm tree with his knees and reached out with all his strength. As Francisco's hands finally touched the coconut and yanked it off of the tree, the skies opened up and a huge bolt of lightning struck down upon Francisco and the tree. A loud crack of thunder shook the air, and the tree broke in half, bringing Francisco and all of the coconuts down with it. Carlos screamed and ran to rescue his brother from the branches. Miraculously, Francisco was still breathing, and Carlos carried him all the way home as fast as he could. That night, as Francisco lay unconscious and bandaged up in bed, Carlos sat by his side. "I never should have let you climb that tree," he whispered, as tears rolled down his face. He laid his head down on his brother's chest, closed his eyes, and fell asleep. When he woke up the next day, he noticed something strange about his brother's face. The skin around his eyes was puffy and red, and his hair, which was normally black and curly, seemed to have grown long, stiff, brown strands overnight. He shook his brother's arm. "Wake up, Francisco! Wake up!" But Francisco did not wake up. Each day that passed, Francisco's face grew more and more brown hairs, and his eyes grew more and more red. Though he wasn't conscious, there were moments when strange moans and gurgling sounds came out of him. Carlos knew that he had to go see the curandera, the town healer, to try and save his brother's soul before it was too late. That night, he broke open his piggy bank, counted all of his coins, and packed his bag to visit the curandera on the outskirts of town the next day. Before he went to sleep, he went to his brother's bed to say goodnight. As he walked over to Francisco, a sinister feeling crept over him. He looked down on his brother's face, which was now almost completely covered in long, stiff brown hairs, except for two red circles around his eyes. "Tomorrow I'm going to see the curandera, and we're going to save your soul from the curse," he whispered. He gave his brother a hug, went back to his own bed, and fell asleep. That night, Carlos had a strange dream. He was back at the palm tree with his brother, only instead of coconuts, the tree had a bunch of skulls at the top of it. He heard Francisco say the last words he spoke before climbing the tree, but his voice sounded strange.
I'm going to climb this tree and get a coconut for us to eat.
As Carlos turned his head towards his brother to say no, he realized with horror that his brother's head had turned into a big brown coconut with 2 glowing red eyes. A high-pitched cackle came from his brother's head, and as he laughed, the sky opened up and struck the tree with a bolt of lightning. The tree burst into flames and split in half. As a loud crack of thunder boomed, and his brother's wild laughter echoed all around him, Carlos woke up screaming, "No!" Drenched in sweat and gasping for air, Carlos turned to look at his brother's bed. But it was empty. Francisco was gone. Carlos and his family searched high and low for Francisco, but he was never seen alive again. As legend has it, every year on the night that Francisco climbed that cursed palm tree, the townspeople see a man wandering the streets with 2 glowing red eyes and a hairy brown face that looked like a coconut husk. They call him El Coco, and it is said that the witch that took Francisco's soul lives on in his body, looking to feast on disobedient children and adults who play too late out in the streets. Duérmete, niño, duérmete ya, que viene el